It was a tragic day, February 11th, 2023, when the life of a young transgender girl named Brianna Ghey was violently taken in what would become one of the most shocking crimes of that year. Brianna was just 16 years old, a bright, compassionate soul with a future full of possibilities. But on that day, her future was stolen from her. Brianna was transgender. She was proud of who she was. But sometimes the world isn't kind to people who are different, and Brianna, like many others, had to face that cruel reality. Brianna lived in Warrington, a town in Cheshire, England. She was loved by her family and her friends. But on that fateful day, she met two people who would change her life forever. Brianna was lured to Colcheth Linear Park by someone she didn't know, someone who she believed she could trust. That person was Scarlett Jenkinson, a 15-year-old girl. And she wasn't alone. Scarlett was with Eddie Ratcliffe, also 15. Together, they led Brianna into the park. What happened next would forever haunt the town of Warrington, and the world, as it learned of the brutal, premeditated murder of a young transgender girl. It wasn't a random act. This was planned. Scarlett and Eddie had carefully chosen this moment, this place. They had one thing in mind: to harm Brianna. They ambushed her in the park, and without warning, they attacked. Eddie, with a weapon in his hand, stabbed Brianna multiple times. It was an act of violence that can only be described as horrific. She tried to escape, to fight back. But it was too late. The attack lasted only moments, but it was enough to take Brianna's life. As she lay there, helpless in the cold winter air, her future was taken away in an act of senseless brutality. After they had killed her, Scarlett and Eddie fled the scene. They left Brianna's body alone in the park, where it would be discovered hours later. The police were called, and they immediately began their investigation. But it wasn't long before they had their suspects. Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe were arrested the very next day. The authorities quickly pieced together the chilling details of the murder. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that this wasn't just a random act of violence. Scarlett and Eddie had deliberately set out to hurt Brianna. They had planned this. But what drove them to commit such an unthinkable crime? In court, the prosecution revealed the sadistic motives behind the attack. Scarlett and Eddie had no clear reason for targeting Brianna other than their own twisted desires. But it was also revealed that Eddie, in particular, had a deep-seated hatred for transgender people. This hatred, combined with the violence of their actions, made the crime even more shocking. Jenkinson was found to have been obsessed with death and violence and had a deep desire to kill, the judge said. Police found she had been accessing material related to murder and torture on the dark web, and had drawn up a kill list, which included the names of 4 other children, before settling on Brianna as a target. A handwritten note outlining the murder plan was found on Jenkinson's bedroom floor, along with notes about serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, and Harold Shipman. Jenkinson told Ratcliffe in messages how she wanted to stab Brianna for fun, and added, "I want to see the pure horror on her face and hear her scream." The case went to trial, and on December 20th, 2023, both Scarlett and Eddie were found guilty of murder. The verdict sent shockwaves through the community and the nation. This wasn't just a crime of passion, it was a calculated act of cruelty. Both were sentenced on February 2nd, 2024, to life imprisonment. Scarlett would serve a minimum of 22 years before being eligible for parole. Eddie would serve a minimum of 20 years. The judge made it clear that this crime was not just about hatred, but also about a deep, disturbing need to inflict pain on another human being. This story doesn't just end in the courtroom. It raises serious questions about how we treat each other. How did we allow such hate to grow? How could 2 teenagers just 15 years old carry out such a brutal act? Brianna's death is not just the end of her life, it's a warning. A reminder that hate, ignorance, and violence still have the power to destroy, but it's also a call to action, to stand up for each other, to protect those who are vulnerable, and to fight back against the hate that still plagues our world. Brianna Ghey was more than just a victim. She was a young girl with dreams, with family, and with the right to live her life. Her story is not just about her death, but about who she was before that night. She was loved, and she will always be remembered. In the wake of her tragic death, Brianna's memory lives on. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that we must continue to fight for acceptance, love, and justice for all. Rest in peace, Brianna.
How come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person at scene, or is it?
I can explain it.
No, listen. Right, listen. You Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright?
You are under arrest on suspicion of murder